Welcome to Kodachi for 3, a bi-weekly podcast where 3 friends and passionate players discuss the world of Wraith. If you're looking for flesh and blood content, we've got it. Focusing on competitive play, community building, and yes, going off on plenty of tangents. From our favorite casual builds to the market, nothing is off limits. So sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for Kodachi for 3.
All right, welcome. We are your hosts. I'm Adam Roach.
I'm Drayton Gans.
And I'm Shey, because that's how alphabetical order works.
You know what? I don't even think I realized that I did it in alphabetical order, but I am going to say that was intentional.
All right.
So this week we're going to go ahead and move on to our featured card, except we have no featured card for this episode. Don't worry, we're not getting rid of the segment. We have so many hot takes, so many tangents for all of our new Tales of Ari reveals. We wanted to get right into it. But just before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing since our last episode. So let's cover what we've been playing, practicing, doing over the past few weeks in Flesh and Blood. Drayton, why don't you kick us off there?
Yeah, okay. So I participated into 2 Road to Nationals. I was going to do a third, but then I realized that maybe I needed to be at Conscious at work the next day, so I decided to duck out on that one.
Overrated.
But didn't have as stellar performances in those as I wanted to. The first one I just made a bunch of play errors, and then the second one I had a really rough first 2 round opponent matchups and went 4-2, but still didn't make the cut because I lost in the first 2 rounds. But I've been re-enjoying the joy of not having to play a meta deck recently, and I've been re-experimenting with Viscerai, which has been a lot of fun. So that's been exciting.
Yeah, I always enjoy kind of the side tangents or pet projects. Things like that are always nice.
Viscerai is not a pet project. He is my one true love.
Well, tomato.
I learned I didn't like Bolton. I learned that the hard way. Whew.
That segues good into what Shey has been doing.
Yeah, no, I threw together Bolton. I bought it only costs you like $24 to get all of his his staples for the most part. And I was like, this will be a fun experiment. And
to be fair,
tried.
You
the
were
players
also
that
playing.
don't own Arcanite and Braveforward Breachers are going to be mad at you right about now because that's not $24.
That's fair. Well, I don't have Braveforward Breachers.
We both said it wrong.
I
You followed me.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't have it. I don't have that card.
You also
Science.
weren't playing Courage Bladehold when you were trying to do Sabers, which was another thing.
Nah. It's okay. I mean, come on. Vestiges of Soul. It makes all the dollars.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, though, because turns out pitching for money doesn't mean much when everything costs 0.
It does turn out that that's probably not your best equipment. Raiden build probably should run a Tunic, and Sabers probably should just go ahead and run that Courage.
I just wanted a reason. I have this Vestige of Soul, and I'm like, why are you here? Because I can't play Prism.
You can.
Prism's done fairly well.
Yeah, but other than that, I've just been doing a lot of drafts and sealed stuff people have been doing locally. So, because I'm not playing in any more Road to Nationals, I gotta prepare myself for that Dallas Calling.
That makes sense. Callings are coming up. I've kind of had a lot going on in personal life, so less practice myself, less CC, more of a focus on limited games as well. Played in a few local and online armories over the past 2 weeks. I think I won 3 out of 4 of those, so going relatively decent there. I also participated in one last RTN. Drayton was at that one as well. That was at Reaper Games on the 28th. I think the event was ran really well. I enjoyed it. Huge facility, which is wonderful, especially right now when I'm not super excited to be close to everybody. I also really kind of enjoyed seeing, friends and other players from different metas, and that particular store is a good location for everybody to come together. I'll go ahead and shout out Brendan Patrick, who ultimately won the event on Chain, Alex Myers, who top 8'd with Bolton, and Jason Hubert, who's an Arc9 Unplugged teammate of ours, who hit top 8 with Bravo during that. I decided to pilot Dash. That was not my best idea. I'm not super familiar with it. Started off shaky, matching into 3 Bolton, a Bravo, and 2 Chains. I think Bravo's my worst matchup, and I lost to 2 of those I think Bolton is my worst matchup, not Bravo. Bravo's a wonderful matchup. But I lost to 2 of the Boltons and to 1 of the Chains, so I went 3-3 for my worst RTN finish this year, about 20th, something of that nature. I had some misplays in that, just being a bit shaky on the deck, and I think I misplayed a block against one of the Sabers, and it cost me the game because he extended a double Lumina Ascension turn.
Ouch.
Yeah, I was not a happy person at the time.
Yeah, Sailor Bolton can definitely get scary if it's gets time to set up and things like that. I mean, 30 damage is 30 damage, right?
Sure. I mean, it's awkward to see them arsenal something and then just baby it forever. Now, there are ways to try to play around that, but you clearly know that's Lumina Ascension 1. They're pulling into the second one. I've literally seen a Sabres Bolton player basically concede a game because their big turn didn't kill the other player. They're like, well, I got nothing else. It's not my favorite version of Bolton, but it is non-interactive and relatively effective against Chain. So, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't knock it. It's a pain in the ass to block.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of bolts and big turns and a pain to block, do we want to move on to talking about, the Tales of Aria spoilers that have popped up since our last episode and are going to continue to pop up as probably we record this episode.
I think we'll probably hear some Discord notifications as we do it. So before we get into it, I'll explain how I organized it, and then I think Shey's going to MC this for us because he's the most qualified, and why not?
Yeah, I'm pro at reading cards.
Exactly. So basically, I organized it. Right now, we're primarily looking at Ranger spoilers. We're going to start with the hero, move into the weapons and equipment, and then the Ranger-specific cards before hitting just the element-only items. And then I think Shey wanted to add a spicy card towards the end. Fits into Ranger, but still wasn't necessarily on the docket here. Also, I am going to toss this episode up on YouTube, so for those of you who want to go back and look at it with the spoilers up on screen, that should be up within a few days after this episode drops. So we can dive in.
All right. Then let us begin with Lexi Livewire. This is the new Elemental Ranger hero. Has the essence of ice and lightning, so you may have ice and lightning cards in your deck. And then we have a once per turn, turn a face-down card in your arsenal face-up. If it's a lightning card, your next attack this turn gains go again. If it's an ice card, create a Frostbite token under target hero's control, go again. And we're looking at 4 intellect, 40 life, standard you see for most heroes. So, ice and lightning, very, very frightening.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, straight out the gate with that one. I think.
No, I have puns.
I mean, this card.
How long did you spend preparing that, Shey? I have to know.
That one was off the top of my head. I have some other ones that I happen.
All right, I'm gonna give you credit. From my perspective, this card very spicy early on. Like the day I saw this, it looks very strong face value. I like the preview of Ice and Lightning. It looks like it's giving us a expectation that there's going to be a weaving mechanic with each of these heroes getting 2 of each of the elements, creating kind of like a fun shared pool for the draft. Her once per turn ability seems super flexible. Looks like you'll be able to focus go again with lightning, resource denial with Frostbite, which we'll talk about a little bit more here in a bit, so I suppose I'll avoid that. But I love that. Honestly,
Yeah.
It seems so much stronger than Azalea.
And actually,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was gonna say, I love that we're seeing, like, innate on the card, here are 2 ways to play this hero, right? Like, it seems like a lot of heroes, like Katsu's a great example. We have the control Katsu and the aggro Katsu and even the mid-range Katsu, all playing slightly-ish different game plans for the most part. And we see that more inherently in several of the archetypes and heroes. But having it kind of more laid out for players, especially for newer players trying to get into the game, seeing like these are the ways you want to play, or focusing on this or focusing on this, I think is very nice to see that we're continuing with this split focus on the heroes. They're not just meant to do one thing and one thing only, which I think is really healthy for the game. Because I don't think we ever want to get to a place where you sit down at a table, you look at their hero, and you know exactly what their game plan is every single time. If that becomes the state of the game, where again it's you can only play a hero one specific way, you're only using very, very, very limited card pools. I mean, that's part of the meta, but also it detracts from the fun and experimentation of deck building, I think, at a certain point.
At the very least, it gives a theme. So, with both Lightning and Ice each having their own distinct flavor in this set, as we kind of will see as we look at some of the more of the cards, it's interesting. You know, you can go fully into one of those themes or intermix those themes, and it gives each of these, or at least is giving this hero that we can see thus far, a very unique flavor. I also like her ability when it was initially spoiled. People are like, oh, it's got to be, you have to run all Lightning and Ice because, you know, there are dead effects it can, you know, you can hit whenever you're flipping that card face up. We will find, once we get to the legendary equipment for the Ranger, that turns out that flip is never really dead and will always generate a value of some kind.
Oh yeah, honestly, this can either be basically on-demand go again or on-demand resource deniable, and you're going to know for the most part. You're going to have access. You're going to be able to put that there for it.
Yeah. Though I think it is very pertinent that we kind of talk about the Frostbite token aura that you know, Lexi and several other ice cards will be able to generate. And so Frostbite is a elemental aura token, and it is cards and activated abilities you control cost an additional resource to generate. Or resource. At the beginning of your end phase, or when you play a card or activate an ability, destroy Frostbite. So that's just, it's tacking on an additional cost to any card, the first card or ability you activate each turn. And we'll get to it a little later on. You can throw multiples of these on people, which is
it's just wonderful.
Fun.
Wonderful.
You know.
The idea of stacking a ton of these, you could literally just shut some decks' turns completely off. At least the way decks are built today. I'm thinking about my typical Bolton deck. It's mostly red or yellow. It can just do nothing if you make something cost 5.
Yeah.
It's I mean, so, Adam, you came from Netrunner. Like, econ denial and disruption in a game can be some of the most satisfying control decks you ever play.
Oh yeah, I much prefer it to damage mitigation, honestly.
No, for sure. I think like we are seeing a very strong control build of resource denial appear here. Now, what my only hesitation on this, because I do love that playstyle. Like I when I saw this token get spoiled, I felt the warm fuzzies of I get to be a control player again in my heart of hearts, and I get to say no to people because that's always the thing I love to do. For those of you who didn't know, I played blue in Magic because I'm a terrible person. But it always is also like, where's that line? How easy is it to apply this stuff? Right? Because if I can consistently throw 5 Frostbite tokens on somebody every single turn, that's way too much. So, I mean, Flesh and Blood has had a great design state so far, so I'm not really worried, but it is always one of those things that like gives me a little bit of pause of like, okay, did we find the line? Did we not cross it? Did we not make it too small? And I'm hoping and feeling like we're probably in a good spot.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from there, and I definitely don't want to downplay any of that. From what we've seen so far, I'm thinking you're looking at 1-2 max per turn, but it's a great point. Like, if we ever look at a state where, like you said, there's 5 every turn, even for 2 or 3 turns, you're basically not playing the game at that point if you're their opponent.
Yeah. I mean, even Bravo would have trouble playing through one of those turns with just his hammer.
Even Bravo. When you think about it, though, even adding 1 or 2 cost to a normal Bravo turn, you are still shutting down their big turn. It's not going to be a crippling crush anymore. It's not going to be that into a pummel anymore. You're getting rid of something. It's going to deny a bunch every time, even at 1 or 2. So it's still very, very effective. I just like that they picked a different style of control instead of maybe having something that was almost a power creep version of defense. So I think I was pleased at how it turned out. It definitely is control, but it's a very different style of control.
Well, I think we've seen damage mitigation control through Prism done pretty well. I mean, we also have control decks that just focus on defense reactions and things like that. I do like this kind of aggressive, more like I'm going to refer to it kind of semi-mid-rangey control, where it's not just trying to get to an end game late state where I'm going to fatigue you out or anything like that. It's more of just saying I'm going to prevent you from being effective on your turn so I can be more effective on my turns, right? Now that being said, again, it is a fine balance, but the one thing I think we can trust from Flesh and Blood is they are very good at doing the maths. They do tend to have a very good balance understanding of like cost versus rewards and things like that with their cards. So I think that's overall pretty good.
For sure. And it is a question of, from the previews we've seen, not going into a ton of detail, we do see it's typically on hit effects. It's going to be telegraphed if those tokens are coming to you. Outside of like Lexi's here, where you're getting a flip face up on it, but you could also pop these in your opponent's phase, so in your D reacts and stuff. So these actually are incur that extra cost on if you're going to sink below. Now your sink below cost 1. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. So I guess let's move on to Shiver. And I guess, let's talk about both of the bows, because there is a bit of overlap here. So we'll start with Shiver. It is a once per turn instant, 1 resource. You can put an arrow card from your hand face up into an empty arsenal zone you control. If you do, choose one. It either gains +1 till the end of turn, or it gains Dominate till the end of turn. So first up we have, Shiver. It does what Azalea does, but a little better.
It does what Azalea does, but flexibly, meaning I think the Dominate is overplayed in Azalea. I've seen plenty of people try to dominate every single attack, and honestly, +1 power for a breakpoint, pulling 2 or 3 cards out of your hand instead of 1, or getting a detrimental unhit, seems good.
I want to go ahead and jump. Can you read off what is it, Voltaire for us, Shey? Because I want to contrast these two. I think that's the most important thing with these.
Seems fair.
Important. It's Voltaire. Strike twice. It's got a full name there. And it's a twice per turn instant. Spend 1 resource. You may put an arrow card from your hand face up into an empty arsenal zone you control. If you do, choose 1. It gains +1 until end of turn. It gains go again until end of turn.
So these are 2 new bows, and if we look at their cost point and what their baseline doing, which is putting an arrow into your arsenal face up, there's another bow that does that, and that is Death Dealer. So Death Dealer draws you a card. So what we're seeing here, balance-wise, is that drawing a card is similar to this flexibility effect of +1 and go again, or +1 versus Dominate, right? So, I mean, if you look at Azalea, usually she was trying to get big dominating attacks, hopefully having a negative effect to cripple your next turn. On the other hand, if we look at how Lexi is looking, she's either going to have this ice style, which is going to be more controlling, which is where you're going to want to have hit effects, meaning you're looking at dominating things, looking at that like you're putting past those breakpoints, or with the lightning style, getting lots of go again to consistently be able to throw lots of attacks in a single turn. So we're seeing already in that split, that bridging in the 2 builds, and which build you're looking at is probably going to define which bow you're more interested in. Dominate's a great ability, but it's more of a great ability when you're crippling them for letting you hit them, right? Taxing those defensive abilities and things like that become much more important when you have negative hit effects coming towards you. Whereas if you just want to spam out damage, go again as your friend.
Yeah, and the Dominate on, Lexi can still run raise the tension and all these other effects that can, on top of being a dominated attack, it's getting extra damage, or you can't play defense reactions. I mean, throwing Remorseless face up in your arsenal feels really good. and I think both of these shouldn't be looked at in a vacuum. We also got the legendary equipment for Ranger, and I think all the 2 weapons in the equipment synergize really well, so it's important to kind of see it. So we have New Horizon. It's a headpiece of equipment. It's got a 2 defense value, and it's while you have a face-up card in your arsenal, you have an additional arsenal zone. When New Horizon is destroyed, destroy all cards in your arsenal, and it has Blade Break. So you can get a double arsenal. It's also just a standard Ranger piece of equipment. So
yeah, it's very true.
But
it can be used by both the old and the new Ranger. It's pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Azalea's going to use it as much, but I don't think it's as bad on Azalea as a lot of people have said.
For sure.
I was gonna say I got really happy when I saw this card because everyone was talking about how there's going to be this quiver nonsense and all this other things about just like, oh, they're just going to have two arsenal spots forever, no matter what, no conditions. And I was like, honestly, I was going to be really frustrated if I saw that. And LSS did not disappoint. They put conditions on it. This card says, hey, you can block for 2, but you'll blow up 2 cards in your arsenal, which I think, is great. Again, there's that risk versus reward type part, which, does kind of speak to the Ranger-esque of like you're having to jump through the woods and hoping you don't trip and die type feel to it, right? You're kind of living on the edge. And you do have to have information revealed in order to access that second arsenal slot. You can't just wait to the end of your turn and slip 2 cards in there, right? Which I think is really, really important for the balancing in this game. Arsenal is such a huge factor in this game. I don't think we can understate that enough. So I was very happy with the design space of this game, or I mean, not this card.
Yeah, I am curious why they made it a headpiece instead of just like another slot, because poor cross wraps just like immediately, like the second this card was previewed, you just heard like a as it's like crashing to the ground, like price wise.
Yes, it's a little odd to me. I mean, Crosswrap in the past was already one of the least valuable legendaries just because Ranger isn't played much. Its main benefit now is that it has some arcane barrier to it, but Blade Break just like this one, but Blade Break of only 1 instead of 2. And the effect is fine, but much more relevant or much more necessary out of Azalea. I honestly don't think there's ever an argument for running it out of Lexi, especially if you're going to run Voltaire, because for Strike Twice, you're going to want both arsenals.
100%. And, like, I don't know. I think it opens up a lot of, like, options for you. Like, I don't know. I personally like the Voltaire a little bit more, but as we see more ice element associated cards, I think that Dominate's going to be big. We've seen, and we'll get to it potentially here at the end, a few other cards that add kicker effects on hit. So that Dominate's probably going to be pretty important. So it'll be interesting.
One thing we might want to be clear about is I think all of us are somewhat alluding to Voltaire being slightly better. I will say it's a Majestic, and Shiver's the token card. So, if it's slightly better, that wouldn't necessarily be shocking to me.
See, I like Shiver better, but I'm also the person who's a dirty control player, so...
Yeah, and that's fair. I think
like,
you can play control out of Voltaire, though. What's
for sure.
Right, is Voltaire doesn't prevent you from shooting lightning cards, and Voltaire does not prevent you from shooting Frost, and Shiver doesn't prevent you from shooting Lightning, which is still nice, right? You're not
absolutely
yourself.
No, 100%. I just, again, when I see Dominate, I think hit effects, and that is what intrigues me about Ranger is, their nasty punishing nonsense.
Now, Trayton, you say nasty punishing nonsense. Why don't we go to Azalea's specialization, Light It Up?
Yes.
Which has a lot of text, so I'm going to have to zoom in a little bit on it.
It does have a lot of text. I couldn't find a clearer card.
They're all good. Okay, so it cost 1. It's a yellow pitch. Lexi specialization. It's a Lightning Fusion card, which, as an additional cost to play Light It Up, you may reveal a Lightning card from your hand. If Light It Up was fused, it gains If this hits a hero, deal 1 damage to them for each equipment they control. If lighted up, deals damage to a hero equal to or greater than the number of equipment they control. They lose and cannot gain activated abilities until the end of their next turn. 4 base strength, 3 defense, and it is a Majestic.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack
Spicy.
on this card. There really is. Losing activated abilities on your equipment. I'm torn on that. I'm torn on exactly how useful that is. So, like, I went in and I wanted to think about that. So it can shut down things like breaking scales, denying Ninja its ability to give additional damage. Of course, Snapdragon Scalers and Refraction Bolters being incredibly popular go-again options that I don't believe they would be able to use once shocked by this thing. Brave Forge Bracers to a lesser extent, and Gallantry Gold if we're talking about the new Bolton builds. Dash doesn't really use its equipment that much in my mind. So I can't decide how important that effect is. It's a fascinating effect, and I do love it. I just can't decide how good it is.
Let's think about it. It shuts down Tectonic for Bravo. It shuts down
It shuts down
Mask.
Tunic.
Yeah.
It does shut down. Tunic could be crucial in the control.
Does it shut down? Because that is a triggered ability, correct? And it says activated.
You have to activate it to remove the resource.
No, I'm not talking about Tunic. I'm talking about Mask.
Oh, it
Mask
wouldn't
momentum.
shut down Mask because Mask just happens, I believe. I'd have to actually pull up that card, but I don't think it would shut down Mask.
Well, because it says specifically cannot activated abilities, which it is a triggered effect on the Mask.
Yeah, so Mask it doesn't turn off. Yeah, it's just a turn effect. Still, it is getting a lot of fairly spicy things here. This is going to be I'm going to say a decent skill cap card that you need to be playing in the right time to set up your actual turns when they're looking at their triggers, right? So, like, if you've identified that Bolton has his stuff, you don't want Gallantry Gold to go off, you're going to want to go ahead and fire this arrow. Things of that nature, right? You're really going to have to make some play calls, some timing calls with this card.
I mean, if you hit them with this, they also can't activate their Courage Blade Hold, which is another even bigger piece of that, right?
True. Yeah, they're losing a lot.
I think what's interesting about this card in particular is it is speaking to that control side of Ranger, while being more lightning angled, which is showing that we are going to want to see, lightning cards in the quote unquote like frosty control probably style decks, and vice versa, right? It's probably not going to necessarily be 100% correct, with just only playing one side of the coin all the time. It's probably going to be best to mix it up a little bit, make sure your opponent doesn't know exactly where you're coming from. And I think that this card is kind of speaking to that angle a little bit.
It's also we finally figure out what fusing means. That was it took us a bit to finally get something that has that fusion keyword. So
that's a good call. It's important to finally know what that is. Honestly, it's super simple as a mechanic. Literally, it's just a reveal mechanic, kind of like Flock of the Featherwalkers was in the past. So it's a little hand hungry, but it does seem like Lightning in general is going to have ways to deal with that. So I don't think I have a problem with it, and it's kind of like we talked already. It's a setup. It's something you got to do early on.
Yeah. I think this actually probably will be more of a sideboard card. I don't necessarily think we'll see it into certain matchups. Like, I think it's something you'll slot out. Like we said, Dash doesn't really use her equipment, so and you have some other here like. Chain doesn't necessarily use a lot of activated effects on his equipment.
I have
The
a disagree.
only reason I would say that it won't be a sideboard is think about how powerful a 1-for-8 is, and the fact that if you fuse it, any other attacks you do are +1. It's so cheap.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to overblock on this because if, they pop the Razor Reflexes on this, it's, an additional, 7 damage. It's like a big damage spike.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be done if the other player were to have go again here, pitch a blue, play this, reveal another yellow, give it go again. They're having a pretty epic turn. You could really end up taking a lot of damage. I mean, 8 damage is nothing to sneeze at, even in a CC game.
No, that's a lot of damage. And I mean, it's also worth noting that this card is really strong in the early game, right, where it's punishing you for having lots of equipment out, and it's extremely strong in that mid game where you're wanting to break more of your equipment, and you might not have done so yet, but now this is punishing you more for not having done so, and then preventing you from continuing to do so.
Yep, for sure. Anything else we think we can
I can't
cover
wait
on this
to
bad boy?
get it in a sealed pull where all of my opponents only have one piece of equipment.
Yeah, that would probably be lackluster. In sealed, I think this is probably actually just a terrible card, right?
I think it's worse in draft. Sealed, usually people have a general amount of equipment because they are guaranteed to pull at least 6. Worth noting, as people have been talking about this, it does not affect weapons. Weapons are not equipment. Weapons are weapons.
Correct. They go in your quote-unquote equipment when you're filling out a deck list, but they are not equipment. Equipment is just head, arms, legs, and chest.
I was going to try to come up with a good segue for Buzzing Bolt off of that, but I couldn't really come up with one. So, hey, Buzzing Bolt. The one we're seeing is the red version. It's a 1 cost. It has Lightning Fusion, so show another Lightning card. And if you do, whenever it hits this turn, it deals 1 extra damage to him. And it's a 5 base with a 3 defense, and it's an arrow. So, yeah, this is just wholesome. Like, it's a little buzzy boy, and if it hits, it'll be 6 damage. Like, that's nice.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me unexcited about this card is it makes me think of Searing Shot, which is 1 less damage, costs 0, and you don't have to fuse to get that effect. But at the same time, it's not bad.
I don't necessarily think this red version is like something to write home about, but like the blue version, just a pitch, play in a pinch, or reveal for like the fusion stuff. It'll be 3 if you have to like reveal. It'll be like that 1 bonus damage for a 4. Like, it's annoying.
Yeah, I think yellow's going to be my favorite of this just because it's on the break point. Still blocks for 3, 1 for 4 is okay. It's not an exciting card. I mean, it's your bread and butter common, but it's a decent bread and butter common.
No, it's not a bad card. Again, it's just, it definitely is not very exciting.
Well, you're going to notice a trend in some of these common arrows. Next up, we have Chilling Icevein, which is not pronounced Icevein because that's how the English language works. It is a 1 cost. We're looking at the red here. It has Ice Fusion, which is similar to Lightning Fusion, but with ice. And if Chilling Icevein was fused, whenever an attack deals damage to a hero this turn, they discard a card unless they pay 1 resource. Arrow attack, 5 strength, 3 defense.
Now,
I like this one.
Yeah,
more.
now this one feels warm fuzzies in my heart and soul because it's getting rid of a card no matter what, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, this is wonderful. I can't imagine a scenario in which I don't run these. Even in a lightning build, I might be running these. Just not in a lightning build because I don't have anything to reveal for fusion. But anytime it's applicable, I'm gonna run this.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the type of common you build a deck around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This can make me excited about the Frost build, who admittedly was straight in on the full-on aggro wide lightning deck. This makes me want to build a Frost deck right here. And honestly, even the art is cool for me.
Oh, the art's fantastic. But see, Adam, embrace your inner I want to make you feel the pain player who just says, no, you don't get to have a fun time. Welcome to the table.
I'm partially responsible for what was called a prison deck in Netrunner, and it was awful for everyone. I feel bad about that, and I don't want to go back.
But it's fun to burgle all of your opponent's agency. So they don't actually have options. All right. Well,
Your fun is
you know
somebody else's sadness. That's what you just said.
No, I'm going to make them feel frazzled, which leads us to our next card, guys.
Wonderful.
Frazzle. It's a 1-cost lightning arrow. Guess what keyword it has? It has lightning fusion. And if it's been fused, whenever an attack would deal damage this turn, it instead deals that much damage +1.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think this is, again, it's a basic bread and butter card. We're seeing this theme with lightning of like another bit of tickle, another bit of tickle, another bit of tickle. So like, if they're coming in 4 times in a single turn and able to hit you with all those little effects, those ones are going to add up real quickly. It's like Kodachi's, if you get hit enough times with them, you still die.
So I have one question for the cast, and I probably should have thought about this myself. So if Frazzle was fused, whenever an attack would deal damage this turn, instead it deals that much +1. That is a similar but different to if Buzzbolt hits. If it was fused, whenever an attack hits this turn, it deals 1 damage to them. So is it just +1 damage on each, or is that actually an important distinction? Meaning, is Buzzbolt a separate instance of damage? Because in my mind, if you block Frazzle,
So let's break down so you're talking about if you played Frazzled and then you played Buzzbolt, correct?
I'm technically talking about just literally the difference in their effects, right? So they're both for the rest of the turn. If you allow them to be fused, whenever an attack hits, and then Buzzbolt. So say Buzzbolt then hits, it does 5 damage, and then it does 1 damage. Is that actually an instance of 6 damage, or is it 5 damage and then 1 damage, meaning if I blocked for 6, it would not block that additional 1? However, with Frazzle, it's that damage +1, so if I blocked for 6, I definitely block that out. Do you understand what I'm saying about the distinctions?
So the distinction would be correct. So if you blocked for 6 versus Frazzle, well, so it says whenever an attack would deal damage this turn, it instead deals that much damage +1. So based off how they're reading, so where I'm reading the difference is let's say you played Frazzle, right, and you hit, and it was fused, so it hits, it deals 1 extra damage. On the other hand, if you then play Buzzbolt, those two are 2 instances of damage coming from Buzzbolt specifically. And again, I would love to see a ruling on this specifically, and I'm sure we will see this whenever it actually comes out and we have our release notes. But it looks like that's a separate instance of damage from the attack, and so it would deal 6 and 2 if they both hit, which the second one would technically be unblockable. That's how it reads. I'm fairly certain it's not going to end up working that way, but that would be how it reads right off the bat for me.
Okay, what do you think, Shey? I just thought that was interesting because the effects are essentially the same, but could have very different implications depending on how they're applied.
Like, I'm not as versed in the rules as you guys. I do think it says an attack, so it will come down to whether or not they treat these little kicker damages as part of the attack or not.
Yeah, if so, I wish they would have kept the wording consistent. You know what I mean? Literally just written both cards the exact same way.
But on that note, lightning seems very complicated now, and there's going to be a lot of math. So I'm now joining Drayton in Team Ice is Nice.
Okay, there's not that much math. We just said +1. You can do +1.
I don't know if he can, Adam. You didn't see what happened on Sunday with Bolton.
I'm trying to give him a good segue to the next card that's +3.
No, it's Weaving Lightning, which is a 0 cost, and the red version will grant you +3.
That's fair. The blue version does just give you your +1, probably.
Yeah, but next lightning or elemental attack action you play this turn gains +3. If it's fused, it gains Go Again. Go Again. It's a lightning action, but it only blocks for 2. So, sad face for a talented generic. But, I don't know. seems all right.
I mean, this is a rare. It plays for free. It buffs 3. I don't like the if it's fused it gains go again portion, meaning I think it's a very strong effect, but you're already playing this card. You've got to have a fused card coming out, which means you're going to have to play another one that costs 0, or you're actually down to 1. So basically, to make this work, you're probably looking at having a full hand or utilizing those additional arsenals. I don't think it's going to be quite as easy to get the go again off of this card as it might look at first glance.
Nah, I think you're just playing it for the +3, and this probably... We'll see how much like play it sees in like a constructed format. I don't mind it in like sealed or like kind of a later in the pack draft pick. Like
+3 for free is never terrible. I give you that.
I think another thing to look at that is an older card, but with the addition of who Arsenal Spaces is going to be a lot more flexible and a lot stronger, is that of 3 of a kind. Drawing 3 cards just to be able to even use them as resources can suddenly become very powerful if you're planning on just spamming it. If you're planning on playing a few setup cards, then playing 3 of a kind to just get your resources, right? So like, and then just playing cards from Arsenal the rest of the turn. I mean, that seems very feasible to do with what we're currently seeing. And again, if you're just planning on using that for resources, that's not a bad setup. It's not a bad plan necessarily.
Yeah.
Honestly, fair point. That's something I hadn't thought about. 3 of a kind is a card I don't think I've ever ran.
Oh, well, I have a whole full playset now. So.
I considered running it with Tome of Findale, doing a gimmicky, I'm just going to heal like a bunch of health this turn type play off of a Spring Tunic. You know, you go to a 6-card hand, then you go to an 8-card hand, so you heal 8, and you just have this massive arrow to the next turn. That being said, it felt really gimmicky, which is why you don't really see those types of play. But again, it is a card that can fuel types of turns like that now that you have these more available access to Arsenal.
I do like that. Yeah. I think it is opening up more lines of play for older Ranger cards. I've seen a lot of people, I think, already kind of freaking out that Ranger didn't really get a buff, or all the old cards are still just old, and we're going to move on to this new stuff. But even without seeing the entirety of the pool, we can go ahead and identify ways where we could creatively use old cards, or more effectively use old cards in combination with these new ones. So I think it's a good reveal so far.
You might even say it's Electrifying, which is our next card, which is a 1 cost. We'll be looking at the red version here. The next time an attack action card hits a hero this turn, it deals 3 damage to them. If Electrifying is played from Arsenal, draw a card. It has go again, it blocks for 2, and it's a lightning action. It's there for your fuses. It's just there for additional tickle damage on top, which is just don't let lightning things hit you. They give you extra ouchies on top of your ouchies.
I mean, this forces more blocks, and gives you a card draw in a lot of situations. I think you're primarily putting this in Arsenal at the end of the turn and moving on. You don't want to block at a 2 card unless you're forced to anyway. I like it.
Yeah.
One of the best commons.
Presumably the blue version is just 1 damage on top of everything, but the card draw and it being a common, like, this is not a bad, like, hey, I'm revealing this for a lightning action. Like,
yeah. I mean, honestly, I think I care about the card draw more than anything else anyway.
For sure, and I mean, if we see more card draw effects in the electric line, I mean, that could get very aggressive very quickly. I mean, we've all seen what Ninja can do with a little bit of extra card draw. I mean, it can get very devastating very fast. And so, you know, this is why I was saying things like this coupled with cards like 3 of a kind, if we see more effects that more actively allow cards to just slip into Arsenal and keep having go again, I mean, how wide these turns can get could be pretty devastating, especially if there's a lot of tickle damage going on as well.
And, I mean, come on, it's like a title like Electrifying. You have all kinds of fun one-liners you can say when you play it.
This isn't Yu-Gi-Oh!
Well, you know what? You haven't. I have catchphrases for different plays I make all the time.
Well, we could just bring this down to earth, guys.
No, we're going to chill it to the bone
you're
because I'm
switching
working
on
this guy in. He's a last minute popped up one, didn't make it into our one thing, but I scrounged it up. So this is a ice action card, 0 cost. We're looking at the red version. The next time an ice or elemental attack hits a hero this turn, create 3, count them 3 Frostbite tokens under their control. Go again, and it blocks for 2. That's a lot of frost tokens.
That's a free blue that you're getting out of their hand every turn, just to do anything. I mean, this card's crazy in my opinion. It speaks to me as a control player. It's a card I want to hit people with really, really badly, just to see the sadness on their face.
I mean,
I know that makes me sound like a terrible person.
Too. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So this is a similar effect to Plunder Run, where you've got to maintain preventing that draw the entire time. You got to maintain preventing them from hitting you a whole turn.
Yeah. I like it.
It's ice or elemental, right? Which I don't understand why or elemental is important to say there. I don't know why it doesn't just say elemental.
So I believe we do. I don't know if we have one in our thing. Oh, so Frazzle is just elemental ranger.
Look at that. That is important to note. There we go.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, this thing's a common too.
It is a common.
Ah, it's a common. Like, so you know it's going to be really common. Getting 3 Frostbite tokens dropped on you, and you're going to be like, man.
I mean,
I shouldn't be so mad because this is a common occurrence, but
this in sealed and draft.
Terrifying.
That's insane.
It's terrifying.
And again, it's hard for me to find this image because you snuck it in there. This is just an ice action, so it's not even just going to be Ranger, right? We're probably going to be looking at Guardian, say, if we get Guardian or whatever it happens to be, also hammering these attacks through. This is going to be a commonly played card. Like you said, it's going to be played in a lot of decks.
Yeah, man. Just to go like, brr, it's cold in here.
Chilly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, we already talked about how even just 2 tokens can really cripple a turn. Now you're changing that to 3. I mean, you literally have to pitch a extra blue card just to do whatever you're planning to make your first action be, regardless of cost.
Yeah, you're basically going to block this entire turn out. So if you stop them from hitting you for an entire turn, you've spent all your cards. If you don't, you're dropping all your cards to play anything or not playing anything anyway.
Also, you can, you play this, you flip your card face up, and it's an ice card in your arsenal with Lexi. You drop the 1 Frostbite token on them, which is going to make their unmovable that they're going to have to play from their arsenal to try to block your crazy dominated attack, cost 4. So you're at least getting 2 cards from hand from that.
Saves me from ever having to run a Dauntless again.
Yeah. All right.
That I could
so
anyway.
I don't have a Quibi like one-liner for this. So someone posted Amulet of Earth. I guess it's gonna be the promo we get at the pre-release. Is the story behind it?
I don't know that has actually been confirmed. I know that when it was previewed, it was only previewed as a promo, so I can assume.
Yeah. Regardless,
my assumption would be that we would see promos of an amulet related to each of the archetypes. We don't know that for certain, obviously, but that would be my hunch.
Nah, that'd be cool. But yeah, it's a 0 cost blue pitch. It has Go Again. It's an item. And then it has instant Destroy Amulet of Earth. Attack action cards you control gain +1 strength and +1 defense this turn. Activate this ability only if you have Earth Fuse this turn.
I mean, so, I think the most exciting thing about this item is that it's an item with Go Again. So as our previous items have really kind of like stymied turns or been something you put down on an off turn to set up for a bigger turn later. I mean, this is something that you can keep your tempo going while also playing it down. Sure, it doesn't block, but it is 0 cost, it is a blue, and it has Go Again, which I think is just a huge boon to making this a much more playable card than maybe your other potions would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard for me to be excited about a a card that doesn't block, but you do have a good point. Most of the time, the reason I'm avoiding items is because they shut my entire turn off, and I'm typically playing aggro decks. This doesn't do that, which I do really love to see. And honestly, it might come in a deck or an archetype in which they have a lot of defense as is. Because I'm going to guess ice control is pretty heavily, or ice and earth is pretty heavily control.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what hero class we're getting for Ice Earth, but I'm very excited to find out.
I hope with all my heart it's a bard. So we'll be switching from Bulba Bard to, if he's ice and earth, I mean, that's Abomasnow, man. So it's going to be the Abominable Snow
Yeah,
Bard.
you just picked a Pokemon I don't know, so how about we switch it back to lightning and earth for Bard?
Oh, man. So, I mean, I don't
There's
know.
not even a
Now you're
Pokemon for
having,
that I
like-
win.
I mean, there is, I believe, but I think it's a deep cut one. And
I was going to say, they're kind of diametrically opposed Pokemon types, so therefore there probably wouldn't be many of them.
the one I couldn't find was Ice Lightning, so I'm glad Lexi was that, because like then I wouldn't have a Pokemon joke for the Bard. So,
All right, well, your to-do list is to find the appropriate Pokemon in case it's earth and lightning.
okay. So instead of ending on Amulet of Earth, which was, it's all right. Like, we were like, hey, it has some merits. Let's end on the thing that's like bonkers bananas, and that's going to be Seek and Destroy. This is a red 0-cost Majestic Ranger, just Ranger, no taglines, action, and it has the text of your next arrow attack this turn gains +3, and if it hits a hero at the beginning of their next end phase, they discard all cards in their hand and destroy all cards in their arsenal. Go again. It blocks for 2. This thing's spicy.
I mean, what's strong about this card is mostly the Arsenal denial and disruption. I also love the fact that it's another 0+3 Ranger card buff, which Ranger loves to see. Anything that gives their attacks +3, especially just baseline Ranger. Azalea wants to make her arrows nice and big so they can just do terrible things. But I do like the Arsenal disruption, which wasn't something I initially appreciated about it. Like the fact that it's destroying all cards in hand and destroying all cards in Arsenal means there won't be a card staying in Arsenal or going into Arsenal that turn.
Oh yeah, I can
Yeah.
see this having some real feel-bad plays to it, especially if played out of some kind of a Frost Ranger. Because think about it, we stack up all that resource denial. You might as well block me out because I've Seek and Destroyed. If you don't block me out, you don't get to keep your hand, you don't get to play it, you don't get to do anything with it.
No.
It's just gone.
You get to play your hand. It's at their next end phase. So
I think what Adam
just burn your whole
I think
hand.
what Adam's attributing to is if you put like 4 Frostbite tokens on them, they probably can't really do anything.
Oh.
And then also
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
they're in a situation where their whole hand's going to blow up anyways, so they're not even getting to effectively use that. I think the more feel bad play would be where they're like, okay, I'm going to block out your smaller attack, prevent these Frostbite tokens, and also prevent this Seek and Destroy effect, and then you razor it over, and then suddenly their whole turn's just destroyed. I could see turns like that just being absolutely devastating out of this style of a deck.
Absolutely.
Just give your opponent a traumatic core memory there.
Dramatic core memory. I like the Pixar reference there.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's good, but since it does have a delay to it, I don't think it's broken good. Meaning, a lot of decks that I play do tend to play out their entire hand anyway, so unless combined with Frost, it's not really that backbreaking. But it does really, really hurt decks who are sitting there holding a reaction or holding a key card that are really trying to manufacture that one big turn.
I mean, I think some decks that this would hit kind of hard on would be your warriors who usually want to tuck that card to Arsenal for that one big turn. Dorinthea being Steelblade Supremacy, Bolton being Lumina Ascension. I mean, you're really messing with that game plan. I think another like maybe unexpected deck that comes to mind for me is actually Ninja, because there's a lot of times where they'll get that mass trigger, and they won't necessarily have the go again or won't have the resources to continue that turn, but they'll want to tuck that card in their arsenal. And now that they're just going to get it blown up, that's denying that resource for the future, right? So while they can still play out their hand before it gets exploded, they can't tuck that card in arsenal, right? So that will affect their game plan later. Maybe not as much as we'd like, but at the same time, it can be devastating. That one card difference can really change a huge turn.
Yeah, every little bit counts, and a 5-card hand is scary. It prevents that for sure.
But yeah, man, like the dominate, like kind of build around some of these like chill to the bone style like frostbite effects ranger is just gonna be just the most stressful experience, because like they're buffing some dominated attack to the moon, so it's like, what if Bravo hit you so hard that you went into debt?
He's gonna play a lot more unmovables. It's fine.
I mean, I did pull out my red unmovables. They're sitting here right next to me.
I think my most excited feeling about watching all these spoilers is it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do already, which is showing me that it's going to shake out the metagame. I mean, we've all kind of seen how the meta has shaken out with Rhodes Nationals. We know what types of decks are kind of prominent, and I feel like what we're already seeing effect-wise from Lexi and from Elemental Ranger and from these elemental effects is already saying, hey, some of those game plans are not going to be nearly as effective once this is thrown into the mix. And that excites me. That means there's going to be more creativity space, more deck building experimentation, and that's where I really get excited, is whenever it's not just, oh, here's the deck I'm going to play for the next 3 weeks. It's building those new decks and trying out new things.
I agree.
Man, Frostbite is going to make Chain so sad.
Yeah, I honestly have nothing against Chain, but I'm happy to see it not go into the calling season as the clear favorite, meaning we're looking at cards that are going to disrupt that day one. They at least have to find a way to play around it.
I mean, if he gets too cold, he can't pay off his student loans.
Yep, Dyed of Blood deck. Can't keep that up forever.
Yeah. But yeah, that covers all of them. At the time of our recording, unfortunately, I guess ICV2 I've never been able to track down their spoiler post yet. So that's 4 more cards, it looks like, that we'll cover in our next spoiler roundup. We're gonna, normally we're on that 2-week recording cycle, but we're gonna try to like kick out some like mini-sodes and stuff where we just like talk about spoilers, because man, it's fun to read the cards and then be like, wow, that's what I think about this card. And then like 6 hours later, a new card gets spoiled and everything you said is wrong, and I love it.
Yeah, because we are only making the answers based on the cards that are out today. And that can change so much.
Yeah, I can't wait for Chill to the Bone to be the only way that generates frost tokens.
Right. Yeah. No frost build after all, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it would kind of be. I mean, I suspect that will be one of the main ways, because if we look at like shields with Prism, right? There was the hero way to do it, and then there was Spectral Shield, which, I'm okay with that being it not being a super heavy theme in that, as long as there's still this like frosty negative effects thing, right? So for instance, go back to Icevein, or chilling Icevein. That card, it was still resource denial, right? It's still that hit effect, where if they have to discard a card unless they pay 1, that's still resource denial, right? So those types of things being a theme in Ice, maybe not to the detriment of the full-on Frostbite token, but just that theme we're already seeing happening with Ice, it does make me excited, and I am very excited to continue to see spoilers come out.
I can't wait to be disappointed when there's no Bard, and it just destroys me emotionally.
I will say, personally, my current guesses are, if we're not getting a new class, it's Illusionist again. If we are getting a new class, I really think it's Druid. I really feel like it's Druid based off what we're seeing.
Hear me out. What if instead of Druid, it's Bard and his animal bunnies, and he's like a Disney princess? He's like singing, and there's like a squirrel maybe particularly surly like Fox.
Listen, Shey, I'm not
All right,
saying
you're losing me here.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm
But
just
you're
saying
wrong.
you're a dreamer.
I'm saying you're wrong.
Dude, whatever. Disney Princess Bard would have been so much fun to play. Oh,
Okay.
A whole new world.
yeah. I was, bare necessities.
Does Aladdin
I
count as a
come up
Disney
with-
princess movie? Does that work?
Who?
I said a whole new world. Aladdin counts,
no.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Jasmine.
Yeah. The Jungle Book doesn't, so I don't know why I started going that direction.
Yeah, that's why I tried to pull it away from bare necessities, because it didn't seem like it was gonna really pan out for the metaphor.
Just a little mixed. I fused the metaphors.
Wow.
Anyway,
It
so
seems like it's time
shout
for
out
us
to
to
anybody.
I don't have
Any-
any shoutouts this week. I kind of called them out during my recap section. Anybody else?
No, I don't think I have any major shouts. My shoutouts have been to the same people. Reaper for running a good event, and the one that we're gonna get to here in a minute, as we still have something that needs to be taken care of, don't we, Adam?
We do. We have so many things need to be taken care of, but we appreciate you listening. We've been Kodachi for 3. We are so close to our WTR box giveaway, which I assume is what Drayton was alluding to there, and we're keeping track of the additional entries from those who are liking and following us on Facebook and sharing our episodes to others. We really, really appreciate that, and we want you guys to know. We are very close to that 100. We come out with the YouTube channel this week, and we're hoping that helps push us on. But for those of you who have just joined us, to enter to win a box of Welcome to Wraith, all you have to do is be one of the people who have liked or followed us on Facebook. When we hit 100 followers, we're going to pull the drawing from those people. For additional entries, if you share any episode and or comment on it, you'll have an extra entry into the drawing. Visibility and reviews are so great for our growth. This week we'll get all of that stuff together, and we really, really appreciate all that help. So you can find us on Facebook at Kodachi for 3. And the podcast is sponsored by Edmund Unplugged in Oklahoma and is the home of the Arc Knights Unplugged Flesh and Blood team, who we are all a part of. We just want to shout out everybody there.
Thanks for listening and being a part of the Flesh and Blood community. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to hear more, please share us, leave us a like or a review. If you want to engage with us directly, please find us on Facebook at Kodachi43. And remember, we are available for download on all major podcast providers. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you again in 2 weeks. Until then, enjoy playing Flesh and Blood.